Welcome, everybody, to Monthly Movie Dispatch. We get together every month and talk about the movies we've seen, what we recommend, and what to avoid. What separates us from the other 100,000 movie-related shows is that we're high school friends, and we've been talking film for over 15 years. We love talking about movies, and we'd be doing it even if nobody was listening. As you might notice, we have a new guest on this podcast. His name is Cal, and he is subbing in for our typical host, Nick Moffat, because Nick has just had his second baby.
Woo!
Congrats, Nick. It's pretty amazing. Cal, we're happy to have you here with us.
Thanks. I'm stoked to be here.
Hey, Cal.
I've been on as a clip, and I've been on a special episode with just two of you.
Yeah, the Star Wars special.
So
the Star Wars special where we went 4 hours.
So yeah,
we talked about Star Wars for longer than any of the movies.
It's true. So I'm happy to be on with more of you, and someday I hope I can come back with all of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can find a space for a fifth window in the quadrant.
You can make it very small. It's okay.
So we also have Sean Bulby from Seattle, Washington, joining us.
Hey, that's me.
And Derek Deal, also from Seattle-ish, Washington, joining us.
Hi.
So let's do some warm-up questions. Sean, I'm going to throw this right back at you, okay?
Okay.
So prolific experimental composers, Johnny Greenwood or Trent Reznor from popular 90s bands? Go.
I guess Trent Reznor. I think it's interesting. Both of them have mostly just done stuff with one director. It's like yeah. No, Johnny Greenwood.
Wait,
I'm
David
going Johnny
Fincher.
Greenwood. Yeah,
And
David Fincher.
Who's the other one?
And Paul Thomas Anderson.
Right. Yeah, they kind of stick in their lanes.
Mm-hmm.
Trent Reznor did the all the music for the Damon Lindelof Watchmen series too.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
We're watching that right now.
But you're sticking Johnny Greenwood.
Yeah, I'm going to go Johnny Greenwood.
Okay.
It's a good call.
All right. So, Derek, different question. The two popular Dan Harmon shows, Community or Rick and Morty? Go.
Community.
Yeah, that's the right call.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Have you been keeping up with season 4?
Of Rick and Morty? Yeah. I think Did the new season No.
No. What?
I think it got delayed.
Oh, did it?
No. I mean, well, they did the first 5, and then the second 5 was supposed to come out on like 4/20, I think, but I think it got delayed. And I actually haven't thought about it.
All right.
Anyways,
I just heard that Community is like in the top 10 or top 5 shows on Netflix right now.
I believe it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of top shows on Netflix, in light of Greg Daniels' new series, which isn't on Netflix, but Cal, what's your favorite Greg Daniels series, Parks and Rec or The Office?
Oh, Parks and Rec all the way. I've actually been rewatching The Office in quarantine with my wife. It's one of her favorite shows, and like The Office is solid all the way through. But actually, I stopped watching The Office during its original run because it got too like mean for me, and like there's a point where, I mean, it's all in good fun, but there's like a point where someone hires a hitman to kill somebody else in the office, and it's like absurd, but that's like the level of like antagonism in that relationship.
What season is that?
It's in the later seasons.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay,
but Parks and Rec is basically the opposite of that. You know, it's like everyone is
super positive,
like understandable and great or charming. Even the horrible characters like Jeremy Jam is like weirdly charming in how horrible he is, and it's
just got jammed.
You just got jammed. So yeah, it's just such a warm-hearted series. That one definitely holds a special place in my heart, even though The Office might have like individual more hilarious moments.
Mm-hmm. I'm blanking on the name, but what is Greg Daniels' new series called? Space
Force, I think.
Oh.
No, that's Michael Schur.
Oh.
That's his protege.
Yeah.
Anyways, new sci-fi, not necessarily sitcom. So I'm excited to see what he's doing next. Pretty prolific television artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess the outline of the show that we're going to be doing this month, which we talked about a little bit last time, since movies aren't really coming out in theaters anymore, we switched up how we're going to do this, and we each picked one movie that hopefully none of the rest of us had seen yet, and demanded that we all check out each other's films that we picked. So those films was Derek's Near Dark, Nick's film Moonstruck, Sean's choice was High and Low, and my choice was a film called Mustang. So we're going to be talking about all four of those movies because all of us here on the show have now watched them, and we're ready to discuss. But before we get into that, I guess we are going to be picking one movie for next month because we're still in quarantine right now, and this is likely not going to end for a little bit longer, or at least movie theaters aren't going to be opening. So let's, right here on this episode, let's pick the movies that we're going to be making each other watch for next month. Sean, I think you probably already have yours ready to go.
Yeah,
What's
I've
it
got
going to
mine.
be for us?
Yeah, I mean, normally we only reserve picking movies for everyone for winning one of our contests. So I've had a few in the chamber because I don't win any of the contests.
Are these like aspirational picks or punishment picks?
Mostly aspirational.
But my pick is going to be After Hours by Martin Scorsese.
Oh, nice.
What? Know nothing about it.
Oh man, it's great.
He was at a weird place in his life when he made this movie.
I've
But
What's the year?
it is totally bonkers and a ton of fun.
it's like 86 or 87, I think.
Okay.
85.
And it sounds like you've already seen it, Cal.
Yeah, in back in the old days, in the before times, when The Irishman was up for an Oscar, I was like, you know what? I feel like I'm not fluent enough in Scorsese to like really celebrate this movie that's supposed to be sort of looking back on all of his gangster movies. So I started sort of trying to catch up on Scorsese a little bit. And ironically, I have yet to watch any of his gangster movies, but I've watched a bunch of his other ones. And I still haven't seen The Irishman, even though the Oscars were like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I guess you can either rewatch it, or if you remember it enough, and you're here next month, we'll see how we end up doing it.
Yeah, we'll see.
But-
Either way, I'll watch it because I love listening along with you guys. So
And either way, you're going to be giving us a pick on Nick's behalf. Is that what we're going for?
I'm down for that. So
yeah, I think so.
Let's at least start there.
partially why I watched or why I am honored to be here in Nick's stead is he and I work together, so we see each other a lot. So I've heard him talk about Moonstruck a lot since he watched it and got super into it and rewatched it several times. And then actually, in much the same way that you were just talking about picking movies to win a contest, a coworker won our Oscar bet and had a dinner party to watch Moonstruck. And so,
okay.
But it was like going to be one of Nick's picks, and he's just been raving about this forever, and talking about how it's one of his favorite romantic comedies. So I think Turnabout is fair play. I wanted to make Nick watch one of my favorite romantic comedies, and I think I'm going to go with Return to Me, starring David Duchovny and Minnie Driver. It's not quite as buck wild as Moonstruck, because Moonstruck gets pretty buck wild. But Return to Me does have some pretty banana stuff in it that is in some ways weirder because they don't acknowledge it as weird. They're just like, oh no, this is just a rom-com, so you just have to accept this weird stuff at face value. But it is a sweet movie. It does have some pretty strong, extremely Italian-American characters, so I feel like Nick could go for that as well. And so that's my pick for Nick, but I think you guys might get a kick out of it as well. Return to Me, starring David Duchovny, Minnie Driver.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, another movie I don't know much about, so it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah.
Derek, what do you got for us? even if you end up changing it later.
Okay.
I believe in you.
This is such a hard decision to make. Like, these opportunities don't come around where I get to force you guys to watch a movie. But the only one I could really think of quickly, it's another easy to go down movie. It's actually another vampire movie.
All right.
But it's one that I've watched probably like 6 times. And it is it's an American remake of a American movie that was done in the 80s, and it's the 2011 Craig Gillespie directed Fright Night.
All right.
It's that's
I
my
thought
pick.
you were going to do Let Me In.
Yeah, me too. That's what I assumed.
As
as
soon
well.
as I started
Yeah.
saying that movie popped into my head, and I was like, oh, I should have said
Because I
that.
know how much you like the
That's-
remake too.
Yeah, the remake is
Yeah.
really good, but this movie
Night.
is it's really easy to go down. Like, it's a really just fun movie, easy to watch, and it's been one of those Halloween movies that I've returned to multiple times just because it's so much fun and it's a pretty good movie. So
I've never
Right,
seen
awesome.
either one,
Can't
so
wait.
I'm super on board.
nice.
So mine is, and I'm sorry, Cal, you have seen this, but Nick, Sean, and Derek have not. Is Tarkovsky's Mirror.
Oh, nice.
This is his strangest film, but it's only like an hour and a half long. It's by far his shortest film.
Yeah.
So not a schluck to get through, but it is very, very fascinating at every moment. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for you guys to watch it.
Yeah.
That's definitely one that I would recommend.
Sweet.
Like, it's a weird one. It's it's not like a thriller with a lot of twists and turns, but it's one that I would like recommend going into blind, just because
Yeah.
Tarkovsky has that sort of like strange dreamlike mood in a lot of his movies, and I think it's better to go in without an interpretation and just see how it hits you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
Nice.
But we'll talk about that next month. So let's do the next two all in one. Let's do a little catch up on what everyone's been up to during the quarantine, and that'll include kind of what else you've been checking out besides these 4 movies that we're going to talk about today.
Sounds good.
Sean, what's been keeping you busy media-wise?
I've been watching some TV. I mentioned earlier we've been watching Watchmen. We're halfway through it. But yeah, enjoying that. But yeah,
Have you got to episode 8 yet?
no.
Okay.
Should I
Yeah.
get
A
to
God
episode
Walks
8?
into a Bar is one of the all-time great hours of television.
Oh, all right. Cool. But yeah, watching movies. I think the last movie I watched, I rewatched like probably my first favorite movie as far as I can remember, The Abyss.
Oh, wow.
I loved that movie as a kid, and I've seen it. I probably saw it a few years ago, 4 years ago or so. But man, I love that movie. It is a wild ride. So interesting. But yeah, and then just a ton of movies, and I've been going back and watching a bunch of classics that I just are kind of on my my list, have been on my list for decades now. So I watched like Gone with the Wind, and I can't remember movies without Letterboxd at this point. I'm
Is your whittled mic stand in the shot?
Oh, it almost is. Yeah, I've been going up to my parents' house and doing some woodworking. So I made a little mic stand
That's
out
awesome.
of. You guys can't see it, but I'm showing it on the camera.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. Been meaning to do that for since we started this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also watched Das Boot that I've been wanting to watch for forever, and Heat, Bullet.
Oh, man. Heat is so
RoboCop.
good.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
want to see RoboCop.
Been taking out movies left and right,
That's
crossing them
awesome.
off my list.
That is much more productive than I've been movies wise. I've totally moved over to gaming, like become a total gaming hermit like I did when I was 19 years old, and been playing Destiny 2 nonstop all day, every day.
Dude, I hear you. I've been kind of doing the same thing.
Grind.
Yeah, I got to get on that grind. Got to get my dailies every single day, or I'll fall behind. I can't miss it.
Yeah.
But
I guess I've been joining you with that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But me on my own times 10 beyond what we've been doing together. So these 4 movies have been a really good excuse to get me back to turn these on. But with that, Derek, what have you been up to for quarantine?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of mirror you, Brandon. I've been mostly just playing games. My son keeps me pretty busy most of the day, so it's not easy to just go watch a movie.
Yeah.
You kind of have to I could watch movies on my phone, but I'm not gonna be able to sit down and watch a movie.
David Lynch is so mad at you right now.
Yeah, I know.
Get
I
real,
can't.
Derek.
I gotta be careful what I put on the screen now because he's affected by that, and so it's like outside of comedies that are directed towards children, he's not gonna let me sit and watch a movie.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I got to be okay with not watching it, just listening to it, or yeah. So mostly just some TV shows. I finally finished Fargo season 3.
Nice.
And I loved it. That show is so freaking good. That show, it just checks all boxes that I'd ever want in a show. Just across their seasons, they're just so creative and so stylized and so artistic and so fun and action packed and funny and serious and they just have everything in those shows. I love them so much.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Valorant, which is Riot Games' new shooter that they're
Second
coming out
game
with.
in 10 years.
Yeah. And it's really, really fun. I've just been playing that a ton. That's mostly what I play. A little bit of Sea of Thieves, which is also one of the funnest hangout games. If you guys ever wanted to play something together beside that's not as intense maybe as Destiny.
Yeah.
It's just this beautiful game and you're just pirates sailing the ocean. You can go hunt for treasure.
That sounds awesome.
Or you can just hang out or you can, attack people, whatever you want to do. It's really fun.
Totally. Cool. And Cal, what's been keeping you busy?
I've also been dipping back into video games, which I haven't done in 10 years or something.
Sweet.
So mostly just playing, Zelda with my kids on our old Wii, a couple of little indie games off of Steam, this game called Baba Is You, which is this,
Oh yeah.
it's this puzzle game where you change the rules of the game to play. But in terms of movies,
Well, what Zelda game, real quick, on your Wii?
Twilight
Link to the
Princess?
Uh,
Past?
No, it's the flying one, Skyward Sword. There we go. It was a financial failure. I don't think anyone really played it, but I got it as a gift, and I've been playing through it with my kids, and it's the first Zelda game they've ever experienced, and that's been a blast. And
Nice.
yeah, and then in terms of movies, also a lot of
I remember this
kids movies because I have 3 kids, and so we've been watching stuff together. The other night we watched 101 Dalmatians, showed that to them for the first time, and they lost their minds. They absolutely loved it. And so we watched that for Friday night movie, and then Saturday morning they were like, "Can we watch that puppy movie again for Saturday morning cartoons?" I was like, "Yeah, all right." But in terms of movie projects, I've been working through the films of Kelly Reichardt. I don't know if I'm saying her name right, and I know that one of you worked on those movies, so I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
Which one, Sean?
I worked on Night Moves.
Night Moves, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's awesome, man.
Have you
She's the
gotten
one
to
who
that
just
one?
did First Cow, right?
Yes, that hasn't come out yet,
Else. Okay.
or at least not to me. I think it might have come out at festivals during the before times,
Right.
but
Right.
So yeah, you worked on Night Moves. I just wanted to like ask you about that briefly because I vaguely knew that was true. But I've watched all the rest of her movies and then found that out, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, do you have any interesting stories from working on that movie? Or
I have a few. Let me grab a bottle of whiskey real quick. No, it was fine. It was a typical indie movie. We worked our fucking asses off.
Yeah.
One night, so like all that boats. Oh wait, so have you seen the movie?
Yeah, I've seen everything she's made now except for Certain Women and First Cow.
Yeah,
Certain Women's the only one I have seen.
Yeah.
So all the boat stuff, the nighttime boat stuff, was
Yeah.
actually shot out on a lake. I don't know if you could tell that from the movie, but yeah. So we rigged a boat. And actually, I believe that the rig got into American Cinematographer magazine
Yeah.
as a little piece. But
Like the setup you guys had to build to film in that canoe and all that.
yeah, so we built a light rig on top of the boat so that the boat could actually go out and so they could shoot. But when we were rigging it, it was a crazy rainstorm that I think it's the only time I've been rained out of a shoot.
Oh, wow.
Before. Like it was raining so hard and so crazy that they shut it down.
Whoa.
But yeah, that was a wild night.
Yeah.
But yeah, we shot a lot of on location stuff, like way out in the middle of nowhere in Southern Oregon.
That's actually what I was going to say. I was like, I feel like a lot of her movies, and that one definitely specifically because of the water stuff, seems like it would be kind of brutal shoots. Just like that one, a lot of it is set sort of out in this compound where there's just like yurts and not much else. And it seems like it'd be kind of like pretty chilly and wet a lot of the time.
Yeah, it was, that was a shoot where we would pretty much every day we would wear the exact same thing because it was just, several layers of clothes and then full on rain gear head to toe.
Yeah.
And you would just leave your hotel in that and then come back at night in that. And then just like, you were so muddy that you would just step into the shower with your full rain gear on before you took it off.
Oh, wow. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Well, if it helps, I really like that movie, so you nailed it.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, you did good work.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's a cool project. She's becoming pretty infamous as a director. Everything she has is so critically acclaimed.
Yeah. Just in general, real briefly to talk about her movies. Like, I kind of went in blind. I just heard there was a new one coming out, and I was like, I've like kind of heard about these for a long time, and I've really enjoyed everyone. A lot of them feel like extremely low key thrillers, and very sort of slow and silent and empathetic, and they just allow you to be with these characters. And sometimes, they're going through really hard things. Like Night Moves is a pretty intense story, but it's still presented in this sort of like slow, character-driven way that I really loved. And then some of them, like Old Joy, is just about two guys hanging out. And it's about more than that, but it's... I find all of her movies to be very beautiful, and her use of silence and stillness to just be amazing. Even like, it's kind of funny to like watch these movies during quarantine where everything is already silent and still, and it still brings this a level of beauty and profundity to just being with other people and feeling how they feel. I just really appreciate her movies that I've seen so far, and I'm excited. I know like Certain Women is sort of this one that blew up a little bit. And that's the one that I haven't seen yet, so I can't speak to it all. But
besides that, besides Certain Women, do you have like one you'd recommend people start with? Your favorite
I think
or something?
I think Wendy and Lucy, which is the story of this. Michelle Williams plays this person who is semi-homeless or like sort of moving through a city trying to get to Alaska. with her dog, and it's just about them sort of trying to make it through this city and move on to the next place. And it's just a really beautiful and, again, empathetic movie that I couldn't recommend highly enough. It's so good. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
Definitely need to work backwards at some point as well.
Yeah.
Well, cool. All right, so caught up with everybody, and let's dig into the meat of this episode. So I think we're going to start with Derek's choice, Near Dark. So Derek, why did you force us to watch this movie?
So I knew. So Near Dark is directed by Catherine Bigelow. It's her second movie. I think it's her first one that she's the sole credited director on. It's from 1987. It's a horror western. It just seems like I know that we all like Catherine Bigelow. She's a legendary director at this point, and just to see kind of one of those early movies, I thought would be fun. And I heard about this. I want to say James Gunn was tweeting a bunch about it or Instagramming about it, because it's one of the movies. He has a Near Dark Halloween party every year, and they watch that movie, and everyone dresses up. It's like a Halloween party.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard of it before, so I looked it up, and I was like, God, that sounds great, and it has pretty good reviews. So I thought it'd be a fun movie for us all to watch, and it's always fun to see early films by big time directors.
Totally.
So that's why I chose it. And yeah.
What did you think?
I thought it was pretty good. I'll read the synopsis real quick. It's cowboy Caleb Colton meets gorgeous May at a bar, and the two have an immediate attraction. But when May turns out to be a vampire and bites Caleb in the neck, their relationship gets complicated. So what I liked about the movie is that it was fun. So first and foremost, it was a fun, kind of, I don't know how much of a horror it really felt like, but it had, it was a unique take on vampires. Haven't really seen a vampire Western like that, I guess. I'm kind of thinking of John Carpenter's Vampires. I know some people consider a Western, or the Robert Rodriguez vampire movie.
Dusk Till Dawn.
Dusk Till Dawn. I don't know if you consider those Western, but this feels more legitimate. It's cowboys.
Yeah, it's definitely playing with those tropes a little more directly.
Yeah. So that's just fun. You got eccentric Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
You got a semi truck running over the villain. I don't know. It had a handful of fun things that I did like about it, and it was enjoyable from start to finish. I think it looked pretty good. There was a couple really good shots that I thought were just constructed in really cool ways. There's one towards the beginning where he's right after he gets bit, and he's trying to get home, and he's crawling across the field, and you see the van, or the
RV.
Winnebago.
The RV, flying down the side road, beside him. It was just that whole scene I thought was really intense. It's the family sees that he's coming, and they see that thing coming, and it's kind of the big inciting incident for the whole movie.
Yeah.
But I thought there's a handful of things like that were really well constructed, and I like the bar scene a lot.
Yeah.
Where they kind of take over that bar.
Yeah, that's a horror scene.
Yeah.
It's like a
sure.
horror movie scene
bloody.
from the perspective of the bad guy, the monsters.
Exactly. I think that's probably the key to why this movie doesn't fully feel like a scary movie to me, is because our perspective is from the bad guys doing the scary thing.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my thing with this movie. I also think it was a blast. I'd never seen it before. I had such a good time with it. I think it would land better if we all didn't go into it knowing it was a vampire movie, which is weird because I know that's kind of the pitch is like, oh, it's this like, you know, country western vampire movie. But I think the problem is like we all go into it and like, oh man, vampires are happening. Oh, she's a vampire because like she loves being out at night. Oh, like these guys are creepy vampire guys. They're gonna murder people. But in like the universe of its own movie, like of how the movie is constructed, it's a great slow burn of like you don't actually fully. It's never fully like explained what's going on, and you know within the movie
they never really say it.
Yeah,
ever,
and
right?
and that bar scene, part of why that works so well is that's like the first time you really see them and confirm that like, yeah, these are scary vampires. They eat people every night, and it's horrifying. And like, but we all know that ahead of time because we know this is a vampire movie. But in the movie, it is set up so well to just sort of lead from one thing to another, and like, oh, this weird thing that happens with her. Oh. Like, oh, the sun hurts them, blah, blah, blah. And then finally, like, that horrific scene is, like, the descent into madness where you really understand what they're all about. And
they really don't even show her fangs either when he first gets bit.
Yeah.
And so, like, even then, you would kind of still be in the dark of, like, what's going on.
Yeah.
Why is he smoking
Yeah, exactly.
from his jacket?
Also, all those smoke effects.
A really cool way to watch the movie.
I just want to say also all those smoke effects, like anytime someone is like just standing outside and you can see them smoking from being outside, I thought that worked really well. I have no idea how they did that. Like just
Lined his jacket with dry ice. I don't know. I couldn't figure it out either.
Yeah, I thought that was really fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably like smoke canisters inside their jackets.
Yeah.
But like it came out everywhere, so it was like even seemed like it was in their pants or
yeah. It worked really well.
It's pretty cool.
I liked they had like some unique effects that I haven't seen anyone do with like especially attributed to vampires, which is like how freaking dirty they were.
Yeah,
like that was almost part of like becoming a vampire. Is you're like this nasty, like just covered, like caked in dirt, and like. All the blood, like especially towards the end when people start, it gets more violent. It's like dirty blood. It's all black and like, their faces are all freaking.
The movie poster is like a perfect example of Bill Paxton. Like just looks
mutilated.
Yeah.
I think
it's like their faces get burnt severely and crispy, and then it doesn't show it healing, but like the ash from their previously dead skin is like still all over their face. Like I think that's what they were going for. It's just really dark.
It was really great.
Yeah, I think Bill Paxton in particular, like I enjoyed the whole movie. I the main couple is totally fine. I think Lance Henriksen is really fun. But I feel like Bill Paxton almost derails the movie because of how great he is and how much fun he's having. Like, like when it, it's sort of
it's going full Nick Cage.
Yeah, like he's just going nuts, and he's so grimy and dirty. And by the end of the movie, he's like covered in blood and burnt, and all the other characters sort of like clean themselves up eventually. And I don't know if he ever does throughout the whole movie. Like he just gets grosser and grosser and doesn't care. And he's such a fun character. And when he, like he doesn't last throughout the whole movie. And when he exits the movie, I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I guess technically Lance Henriksen is a bigger bad guy, maybe. But it kind of, it's a little underwhelming that Bill Paxton goes first because he's so like, he's like a complete nihilist monster in this whole movie. And
it's kind of a weird structure for the movie because I kind of felt like even after all that Bill Paxton was still the main antagonist.
Yeah, same.
So like that was the end of the main antagonist. Yeah. But then there was just like this, a couple other people that still had
wrapped up the couple loose ends.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which is a unique kind of way to tell it. I don't know if that was intentional or if maybe that was a screw up in like the design of the story.
I think Bill Paxton's just so good that he kind of accidentally stole the spotlight for a while there.
Was he a star by this point?
This
late
was
80s, 87.
He and Lance Henriksen had just been in Aliens together. But
okay, so this is.
But in Aliens, he's also
right on
kind of
the
a
heels
side
of that.
character who also kind of steals the spotlight. So
Yeah.
So I think he was probably just like kind of a hot actor just because of Aliens, maybe just like right after that, but not a big.
yeah,
Because he probably got way bigger in the 90s, I'm thinking. But either way, yeah, he totally like steals the show. Just to wrap up what I wanted to say about the movie real quick is I think it's fun. Just overall, it was a fun movie, and I think it's pretty well made. There are like in that, like how we were kind of talking about how the main villain kind of feels like he gets killed before the movie's over. So it's kind of has like some weird pacing issues, I think. And some stuff that's just a product of its time. I feel like the main girl character's like incredibly underwritten. She's like
totally.
barely a character. And our main character's kind of a sleazebag, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
But
yeah,
he does have an arc of some sort. I think he does have some heroic attributes by the end of the movie. I think like what you said, if we didn't know this was a vampire movie, it would kind of change how I viewed everything, because I know you think he's going to have to kill someone eventually, right? Or I guess knowing that since we know how vampires work, our whole thing is like, he's going to have to kill someone eventually because he's a vampire. We all know that you can't undo being a vampire.
Yeah, I kind of thought
that
it had a little bit of a cop out in the end.
Totally.
Because like the whole idea of the vampires, that once you're a vampire for all eternity, and you have to kill. You know, you've sold your soul to the devil, and there's no going back from that. But it kind of and I think that was what made the movie so interesting. Like, he has to kill someone eventually. Like that was kind of, I feel like, a promise that the movie made to us, and
totally.
early on, and it just kind of, they discovered a way to
not have to fulfill
to not be a vampire anymore.
Yeah, like
So
it
then it's
does.
like-
Yeah, I totally agree, because it does present, you know, like it presents this moral quandary between, you know, like, are you going to let yourself die, or are you going to kill somebody else? Like, and that's a really interesting and fun idea for a story. And then, yeah, the fact that it's just sort of like, his dad switched his blood out and he's fine now. It's just like, oh, okay, well, I wish someone did make a movie about that fun idea you had.
I mean, not that there hasn't been lots of other vampire movies that have played with those ideas.
Totally.
Yeah, I really like the movie overall, though.
Another scene I wanted to shout out, just because it was something that I thought was a brilliant idea that I'd never seen before, and was an incredible like movie moment, is when they are trapped in that bungalow and all the sheriffs are like shooting through the walls, and every time a gun goes off, there's a new hole with sunlight coming through and burning the vampires.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
Those
like
bursting flames.
so good. Yeah.
Really good setup and payoff with the script there,
Yeah.
building up to that.
Yeah, all those visual effects were great.
Yeah.
Throughout the
Yeah.
entire movie.
I thought the fire visual effect at the end, like the compositing there,
With the little boy.
was so seamless. Yeah, with the boy's face, I like stood up and looked so closely at that, because I was like, how? Oh, it's like a layover flame, but it's so seamless.
No, I'm
even
pretty
need
sure they just
CGI,
set fire
like-
to a child for that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like looking for that goopy material on his face, but I was like, no, it's not there, so it must
Yeah.
be something else.
Yeah.
It was really good.
So what you think? How do you say they did it? I thought it was like some really early like CGI type of work or
No,
something.
I would
but-
Maybe
Yeah,
I was
I
thinking it was
don't
like some
think
weird
so.
compositing, but I don't really know what.
I
that
think it
thing
was
even
probably
means.
like that mirror effect, where it's like a piece of glass that is, the image passes through, so the image of the boy passes through the glass, but then the glass is also reflecting the fire that's off
pretty
screen.
old school trick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
One thing that I could not believe they didn't do, such a missed opportunity, was the final shot. How did they not go out in the sun and have that be
Oh yeah.
the final shot of the movie?
Totally.
Instead, he's like, let's go outside, and then it just pauses on them and fades
yeah.
out. And I'm like, how the music should swell.
That's
He
right.
she should step out in the sunlight for the first time in her life,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that should be the climax. It's such a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
funny.
overall, just to like say what my like big opinion is, I guess, is I think this is like not a perfect movie in any way, but it's so clear that like as Catherine Bigelow's first like feature film of hers, I guess that she has total ownership over. It's like absolutely clear that she has so much talent,
Yeah.
and that she's going to be an incredible director as she matures more or gets better scripts.
Yeah.
And so it's just like really cool to see where she starts.
Totally.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
then 2.5 or 3 decades later, she's winning Academy Awards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one last thought that I wanted to put in as the Nick replacement for this episode, which is another thing I really liked about this movie is it definitely is sort of wearing the clothes of a Western, all the cowboys and, sort of this high noon showdown that happens. And but I think it also borrows a lot from noir in a lot of interesting ways, both like visually and thematically. There's this femme fatale, there's this sort of morally compromised hero, just amazing work with like light and shadows all throughout the movie. So yeah, just wanted to be the Nick and be
Shout out the film noir.
talk about film noir for a minute. So
Nice.
All right, guys. So let's move on to our second film, which is Moonstruck. And let's take a moment to watch Nick Moffat's 2-minute review of it. Here we go.
Hi guys, it's me, Nick Moffat. I can't be there recording the podcast with you guys today because I'm on paternity leave. It's amazing. I love my new baby, love my family. I just wanted to call and say thank you to Cal for filling in for me this week. I'm happy that you're there. I also wanted to talk real quick about Moonstruck and give you my quick thoughts on why I chose for it to be the movie for you guys to watch this week. I first saw Moonstruck in 2017, and since then I've seen it 4 times, and each time I've liked it more. It's growing to be one of my favorite, not just romance, not just rom-coms, but just one of my favorite movies. It's just so uniquely funny, and the romance in it is just pure passion, and it feels real to me. It's not like trying to do a commentary on romance or do anything like that, like with a lot of other rom-coms I like, but it's just beautiful people that feel real, falling in love in just a unique way. I love how this movie has like a layer of like mystical, like they believe in luck and they talk about fate a lot, and there's this layer of like they're meant to be together, and it explores that concept from like a distance. It doesn't go too far into it, but it hints at it, and that's just what I love about this movie. It's like a purely unique thing. It's crazy ridiculous in its humor, it's crazy ridiculous in how the romance unfolds, but it's still sweet and lovely at its core. So I don't know, I hope you guys loved it. I hope you guys liked it. It's, to me, like New York City in film is, especially in the 80s, is like awesome. And also Nick Cage, the introduction of his character is one of the best introductions of any character of all time. The unsung hero in that scene is Chrissy, the girl who like works upstairs, who's in love with him but won't tell him because he can't ever love anyone ever again. Just how he's screaming at her, Chrissy, grab the big knife, I'm gonna slit my throat. I won't do it. Just such an amazing scene. And I don't know, I just love it so much. I'm rambling here about Moonstruck. I wish I could be there to talk further about it with you guys, but I hope that you enjoyed it. And I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, we're back. That was Nick's review of Moonstruck, his movie that he selected for us to watch. I'm excited to talk about it, but Cal, on Nick's behalf, why don't you kick us off? What do you think of Moonstruck?
I think it's great also. Part of the reason I like it is definitely because of how much Nick likes it. I feel like it was a great pick from him because this movie is completely bananas. It's just like at a 100% all the time. Like everyone is always like feeling their emotions so powerfully that they just have to yell no matter what the emotion is, like anger, happiness, confusion. Like everyone is just always super intense about everything. And I feel like that's a pretty strong Nick Moffat vibe. You know, like when he likes something, then he like loves to tell people about it and shout about it and reenact scenes from it. And that was my first experience with Moonstruck, was Nick telling me about it at work and reenacting large portions of it. And yeah, it's great. I mean, yeah, the premise of this movie, if you aren't aware, it's just all about New York Italians, starring Cher, who forces a guy to get engaged to her a little bit, but she's not really sure if
that she doesn't necessarily love.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing.
Yeah, she wants to marry him because she doesn't love him, because
her mom tells her
previous the previous love of her life
was cursed.
was cursed, and so she feels like her being in love with someone will make them die. And the brother is this weird sort of cowardly guy who wants to get his brother's blessing for his marriage. And so he sends Cher to get the brother's blessing, and the brother is Nick Cage, and the Nick Cage character refuses to bless this engagement because he's so angry at his brother, because one time his brother came and talked to Nick Cage while Nick Cage was working at the bakery where he owns, and Nick Cage accidentally got his hand caught in a bread slicer. And he blames his brother for this, and he goes on this long emotional rant about how he hopes that his brother is never happy because Nick Cage accidentally sliced his own hand off. But like talking about it makes it seem silly, but in the moment, like, it is still insane and like hilarious, but also it's not being played for a laugh. It's just 100% right up the middle. Like, this is just how he feels, and he's yelling about it, and yeah, and it kind of goes from there. And Cher and Nick Cage sort of hit it off / yell at each other about their weird superstitious ideas about love.
I somehow didn't know Nick Cage was in this film.
Yeah,
I
guess I didn't either.
Until he popped in.
Is so amazing.
Oh man,
I couldn't believe, like, I didn't read that online first, that he was going to have that big of a Nick Cage moment.
oh yeah, like that's an all-time
we
Nick
saw
Cage moment.
Kind of also try to reenact it on the video he just sent in.
Yeah,
which made me start cracking up while he was doing it.
yeah. It's so good. And so it just plays. It just plays like this sort of alternate universe where, like,
right.
no one is joking about any of this stuff, but everything is just super heightened and overwhelming. And at another point, like, Nick Cage just like is yelling at Cher about something, and then throws a table across the room that's covered in like food that she just made for him, and then they like start making out. It's just like
a medium rare steak.
Yeah.
It's
just so.
I think the writers are in on it, but the characters, like you're saying, are treating it so seriously in a perfect way.
Yeah.
I love the gravity that this movie like makes
Totally
for each of its characters and scenes. Like the moon scene with the side characters, the best friends of the family.
Yeah.
When they're like in their like bedroom, and he goes to see the moon that he saw like when he was a kid, and just like looks outside and the music swells, like it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And like kind of powerful, but you don't like, it's in this weird, hilarious movie.
Yeah.
But I just like kind of how big the movie's able to make these like emotions for these characters.
Totally. Yeah, I agree 100%. Also, this is like a little bit of a side conversation, but it was the conditions under which I saw it originally with Nick. I actually rewatched it this morning just to like refresh. But when I saw it with Nick a few weeks ago, it was because our coworker had won this Oscar bet, and she actually prepared like all of the food from the movie, like, so she had like this really good bread. She made medium rare steak. and I think whiskey because he drinks whiskey in that same scene, and a couple of other like small treats. I'm not even doing it justice, but she had like put all this awesome,
specifically themed party.
Yeah, and so that was something I sort of wanted to ask. Is that something that you've ever done? Like have like movie parties where the food is related? Because I really enjoyed that time that we did that for Moonstruck. But also, there's just a lot of great food in Moonstruck. So.
Game of Thrones.
Definitely, I've done that at Game of
your
Thrones
guys'
parties.
house got me into drinking wine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Or drinking coffee during Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, we kind of did the
donuts
Finer
and
Things
coffee
Club.
and pie.
Yeah. That's super
I
good.
used to kind of do that.
School.
Yeah.
That's really fun.
But yeah, Game of Thrones too. I've done that at a few parties here in New York. But yeah, okay. So Sean, what did you think of Moonstruck?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I had a hard time with the Nicolas Cage scene. Like it totally threw me off guard. It almost lost me. But it definitely pulled it back. And I think the thing I loved most about the movie was the whole family dynamic, like especially in the end, like the kind of final scene where the whole family's together and everyone comes over and like her brother, her fiance shows up, Nicolas Cage's brother shows up, and like, it's just totally insane. And, yeah, every person in that movie is their own completely unique and fascinating character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved all the like love triangles and they go to the Cher and Nicolas Cage go to the opera and meet their dad, who's there with his a girl he's dating behind his wife's back, and yeah, there's that was
mom,
a really great.
her like thing that night as well that was going on with that previous character that has his whole backstory of like women or his students from college that he hooks up with. I mean, like, yeah, all the side characters just like really get to shine, and you really like feel like you know who they are.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Another thing that I thought was really interesting about it, just in the context of romantic comedies, like it does sort of have this like this tone of a farce or like a screwball comedy where everyone has all these secrets and like going behind each other's back, all these different threads that seem like eventually they are going to like collide and explode. And instead, in that end scene where everyone's like eating together, they all collide, but it just sort of coalesces into this new era of peace in this family instead, which I thought was really funny. Like it doesn't, like no one at the end of the day is very
I love
antagonistic
you to each other in Italian.
Yeah.
Which was kind of a really beautiful moment.
Yeah. And I just really liked, like, you know, it's not interested in making things hard for any of these characters. Like you've built up so much goodwill for them and their weird, complex situations that when everything comes to a head, it's just sort of like, it's okay. Everything will be all right. You know, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cher was absolutely fantastic too.
Yeah.
She killed it.
She won an Oscar for this movie.
Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Really?
Holy shit.
I think
Yeah,
so.
this was her best actress winning movie.
She really holds it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Derek, what did you think of Moonstruck?
Yeah, I mean, I echo all the same things you guys said, but it's one of those movies that has always been, I've always seen it as like one of the great rom-coms, and never seen it obviously, but I've seen like the Nick Cage I've lost my hand scene like multiple times. And also so there's like three like things that I don't know, they're like three memories I have about this movie, and I didn't know that they were this movie. So it was the Nicolas Cage scene. Sorry, Phoenix is freaking out there. The Nicolas Cage scene, and then also I remember back when old VHS days, there used to be like certain production companies would put out kind of like a montage of like their greatest hits, like as like a trailer before the movie you're watching. I don't know if you guys remember those kind of
I
weird
do.
things, but I remember the Cher slapping, going, snap out of it. I remember that from there. I never knew that was part of this movie. So it's just funny, like, I was like, oh, I wonder when that's going to happen in this movie. Because once the movie started unfolding, I was like, oh, that's this movie. I remember that really clearly. So it was just really fun to have like those things linked to this movie.
Yeah.
After having them in my head for so long.
Totally.
But yeah, Cher was great. Everyone was great. Kind of like how you were saying with how everything collides at the end of the movie. I like that this movie kind of had its own, like it just moves, things unfold differently than you expect them to.
Yeah.
And I guess I kind of had some expectations just because I've always known it as like a great rom-com. It's like with Harry Met Sally and Moonstruck. And I've always seen like these, older movies that are just in like a different tier and people just consider them some of the best of that genre. But it's nice to see like a movie that is so creative with telling a story that's kind of been told before. Like those.
Totally.
It's just nice to see. And
yeah.
Special. Yeah.
It was good.
All right. Well said, Derek. We got 2 movies to get to still. Let's continue on. So that was Nick's pick of the film Moonstruck. Hope you all get to see it. And let's move on to Sean's big choice of High and Low. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah. I've been wanting you guys to watch this movie for a while now. I bring it up just about every chance I get. Like I said earlier, I just haven't won any of our contests to get you guys to actually watch it. So I'm really glad we got this opportunity in quarantine for me to share this movie with you guys. But yeah, so High and Low is a Akira Kurosawa movie. I watched when I was doing my Kurosawa anthology starring Toshiro Mifune. And the tagline, IMDb tagline is, an executive of a shoe company becomes a victim of extortion when his chauffeur's son is kidnapped and held for ransom. So yeah, the movie starts out with a phone call from someone who claims that they kidnapped Toshiro Mifune's son. And then shortly after that, they find out that it wasn't his son that he kidnapped, it was his chauffeur's son. So now he has to make that decision of he would have saved his own son by paying the $30 million ransom, but would he pay for his poor lower class chauffeur's son? And it brings up all kinds of really interesting, morality questions. And
yeah, I
think this movie has so much to say and so many interesting kind of scenarios and questions that it brings up, that it asks about society. I think also this movie is just so well directed. I would, ever since I watched it, I would occasionally just send you guys pictures of just screenshots from this movie of all the characters in like, in the shot and just say from the way this shot is blocked, what can you tell about each individual character just from the imagery?
Despondently staring off screen while somebody else is monologuing.
Yeah, definitely. And like everyone's looking off in different directions, and like where they are in relation to the other characters says so much about their character and what they're going through and what they're thinking about. Yeah. I think this is just such an intense movie. It goes through like 3 very distinct kind of acts, where like the first act is all about that question. The second act is all about the police investigation. And then the third act is all about, catching him and like, it's like an extended, like not chase sequence, but
cat and mouse.
But cat and mouse type thing. And I think the way that the movie is structured is so unique, and it really like like pushes the movie forward constantly. It never dwells too long on any individual thing, and it's just like such a not necessarily a rapid pace, because I think it also takes its time with a lot of these questions and a lot of the character stuff. But yeah, I love the movie. I love the visuals, and I love the performances. Yeah, so I am really excited to see what you guys thought about this movie.
So Derek, you saw this earliest in the month. I think you tackled this right away once you got the assignment.
Yes. This was my introduction to Kurosawa. I don't think I've seen any other movie by him.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I don't know like where and I'm so like I just don't know a whole lot about him. So it's interesting. I just know he's one of those legendary directors, but I don't know where he stands in like the place of film. Like, was he pre-Hitchcock or like around the same time?
Started. He really started in the late 40s, but like kind of took off in the early 50s, especially with his samurai flicks. I think like in the 40s, it was illegal to make samurai movies, but once that ban was lifted, he really started off his career with Rashomon, I believe, was his first samurai flick, and that one's like that one's the famous one about there was a murder in the forest and a king is trying to figure out who's responsible, and so the story is told from 4 different perspectives, each telling the story differently, and it's all kind of about how do you decipher the truth. But yeah, he's most famous for those samurai flicks from the 50s, and like heavily influenced the Western genre with his samurai films.
Yeah, like
but he has plenty of like crime dramas, and he has a few noirs, and
I know he has a really big library of movies he's made, right?
Yeah, like
because
there's a couple like. There's a pretty straight line from a few of his movies to things that were turned into American classics. Like he has a pair of samurai movies with the same main actor, Yojimbo and Sanjuro, which are like, those are like the Man with No Name movies. Like those are the originals.
Yeah. I mean, a Fistful of Dollars is literally a direct ripoff Western adaptation of Yojimbo,
and
which is actually the same main actor. It's Toshiro Mifune from this one. And Toshiro Mifune is pretty much in every Kurosawa movie.
Yeah, and the other big one I wanted to shout out is A Hidden Fortress, which is also with Toshiro Mifune, which is it's basically Star Wars, and it's even down to like the main characters of Hidden Fortress are basically like C-3PO and R2-D2 analogs. Like they're these little nobody guys who are trapped in this bigger war about trying to find this secret hidden base and all this stuff. So yeah, Kurosawa's like, he's great. And also like, even if you haven't seen a Kurosawa movie, you've definitely seen a Kurosawa movie because he's everywhere in American cinema. So,
right. But since this is the only movie I've seen by him, I can see a lot of like the fundamentals, like a lot of the roots that this movie probably spawned in a lot of filmmakers today that we love. Like I feel like this movie is a interesting blend of like Zodiac and Parasite on a lot of different levels.
Yeah, the Parasite analogy was like, it's the first time I've seen this since seeing Parasite, and that definitely occurred to me too.
Yeah. And so it's just it's cool to see, like it's crazy that I haven't seen anything by this guy, and it's cool to see like just immediately off of one movie I can see how many like different directors' careers were probably heavily influenced by the stuff he did.
Totally.
So that's really cool. But as far as the movie goes, there's a lot to appreciate obviously with the movie. Like you said, Sean, like some of the just still shots in this movie are incredible. One I couldn't find, I was trying to find it online to share it with you guys, but it's when the villain is like stalking the girl in the heroin den.
Yeah.
and she's like leaning against the window frame, and like in the background he's like creeping forward with his sunglasses on, and like it's crazy. Like it looks like a piece, you could frame that shot and just put it on a wall. It's a piece of art, and you could talk about it for hours.
The sound of that scene where she's like the nails scratching on the walls, and
there's also like in the background as the like heroin addicts are roaming around, just like really stylized audio cues in there. Horror movie style.
Oh, for sure. And another scene that just really stood out to me is the train sequence. The shot when they look out the window and they see the person standing with the kid, and like how helpless everyone is in that moment. Like that literally gave me chills. Like I like got like goosebumps. Like that's such an eerie image. And like once they that scene is just so good because they all kind of figure out like when it's too late, like what's happening,
that they are powerless. Like, they figure out like,
there's nothing they could do. And it's just so intense. And I love the whole movie. It was great. There's so many little things to pick out, but those are the two things that really, really stood out to me. So
that
awesome introduction to Kurosawa. Thank you.
Yeah.
That train sequence was one I wanted to bring up too, because I also noticed that was at least the first time, which is like an hour and 20 minutes into the movie, when the camera goes handheld, and it looks great with them like following them, running back and forth down the train, getting his coffee to follow the guy back into the phone booth, and the camera's just like right up against their shoulder, moving past passengers and around corners, and it just moves handheld, and it just really makes that scene intense.
Totally.
When everything before the movie is so stagnant and looks planned out, and that scene is just like rough and gritty all of a sudden. It's really cool.
Totally.
Sean, you mentioned it earlier too, the like structure of the film. I thought was just like such a interesting writing choice, because like it's a bottle episode for an hour straight, and it takes place nearly in real time, night and morning, I guess. And then all of a sudden you bust out of the house and you kind of don't really come back, and you don't really even come back to the father, and you only hear about what he's going through the detectives like telling other detectives. And he's kind of pushed to the background, and you just really follow the like crime scene investigation Zodiac aspect of the film until everything kind of comes together at the end. But that's just like a really interesting writing choice, and it was super creative and made the movie all that much more unique, splitting it up in that way.
Yeah.
But overall, obviously, I was pretty blown away. The visuals are jaw-dropping. And then the last thing I wanted to shout out was he totally Steven Spielberg Schindler's Listed the red coat with that pink smoke in color.
Oh, yeah.
That
Definitely.
was cool.
Yeah.
Like that was so specific, and it's such a Spielberg thing in Schindler's List that it was cool that he was doing this back in the 60s.
Yeah.
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 I will say, like, all those guys, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, all those guys were heavily influenced by Kurosawa. They loved Kurosawa, and they actually played a pretty pivotal role in bringing him back later in his career and setting him off for his more modern movies. So yeah, that's
cool.
That very well could have been kind of an homage to
A shout out.
to High and Low.
Yeah.
Nice.
So Cal, anything you want to add to the movie?
A couple of, just because we already had the conversation about Near Dark and it's like rock in a hard place moral quandary that it kind of slides out of. This, I think part of what makes this great is it has this great impossible moral quandary of like, someone kidnaps your son. Oh, it's not actually your son. You could probably still pay to get the son back, but also maybe the kidnappers will figure out that it's not actually your kid, and maybe you could get away with not paying and it wouldn't be bad. And it's just this horrible, sweaty, pressurized idea. And then the fact that it doesn't back away from it, it just keeps making it worse. And then I think in the end, like, part of what's fascinating is that I feel like this movie would have been just as interesting either way. And that, like, it happened to, he happened to choose to kind of do the right thing and, blow up his own life to try and help out his chauffeur's kid and his chauffeur. But I think that's part of what makes it interesting is it doesn't feel expected. And this kind of odd structure of the movie, I think part of what works about it is it feels pretty real. Like, it's not playing a template that we've all seen before. Like, this isn't Taken, where, like, oh yeah, Toshiro Mifune, like, finds out his kid has been stolen and he goes and, like, shoots 40 people and then they live happily ever after. Like, it's a lot more interesting that it's like, no, he feels pretty powerless from the get-go, and then once he makes this moral decision to, ruin his own life, then, like, that's it. He's kind of out of the picture. He has nothing to do with it anymore. He did his thing, and now his life is over. His business is ruined, his whole career, his whole plan, all that is done, and now we're just moving on because he's not actually important to the story because he did the right thing.
And they still, like, successfully wrap up his character arc by the end of the movie.
Totally, yeah.
That final scene to me is so fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
I just, like, after, they have the conversation and then the door just shuts on to Toshiro Mifune and it's just a reflection of him. I just, like, stood up and applauded. I was just like, God damn it.
Yeah.
It's so fucking good.
And the fact that it moves on, like, when it moves on to the police, you've kind of met some of the police officers and the detectives, but it almost moves into this phase of, it's like the movie M a little bit, where it takes a sort of bird's eye view to this investigation and you're tracking all the moving parts, but it's mostly in conversations between police. You're not actually seeing them necessarily interview people or find this evidence, but you're just watching them put it all together and figure out all these bits and pieces. And I think part of the reason that works is this is also a pretty, like, empathetic and film with whoever you're watching. Even when it gets to the villain, he's a scary guy and messed up, but you're kind of watching from his perspective, and same with the police. And so once we sort of lose track of Toshiro Mifune, I feel like the movie kind of breaks you down, where you're expecting one thing or another to happen, or you want him to have agency, and then when he doesn't, then it starts in on this phase of watching the police put things together, which is not information that we could have put together. Like, we could not have solved this crime. Like, I also don't know what I would have done in Toshiro Mifune's place. And now it's just up to the police, and we're watching them solve everything and try and figure out what's going on. But it's engaging to watch. And then once they have enough of the picture of, like, what is going on with this bad guy, then it kind of switches over to him, and we are no longer, like, victoriously watching the police hunt this guy down. We're kind of on the bad guy's side as we're watching him sneak around, and we figure out what his deal is and why he's doing what he's doing. And, we start to feel more trapped. And it's odd that by the end, you see him more as a broken, hopeless person rather than a bad guy that we're, like, stoked to see get justice, which I think is another part of what makes that ending so brilliant. Is, that's the ending you hope for at the beginning of the movie, and then by the time you get it, it's just like it's heartbreaking rather than, like, victorious.
I think the movie title, I guess, High and Low, literally in the film, they keep talking about the house on the hill and stuff, and they show the kidnapper's inner home and what he comes home to, and him looking up at the house. I think, the movie from the get-go kind of shows you it's going to have a little bit of empathy for, I don't know, that connection between the hero and the villain.
Yeah. One small thing I wanted to shout out, I just noticed it this time around, is right at the beginning we see Toshiro Mifune when he's in his negotiations or his conversation with his company, and he sort of goes and stands by the balcony window to sort of overlook the whole city, and that's where he does his thinking. And then later on, we come to find out that window that he's looking out of is how the kidnappers are looking into his house, and it's them being envious of his position in this high tower above the city is partly what led to this whole situation. But there's a great moment sort of when they're under lockdown and he's trying to figure out what's going on, and he goes to stare out over the city and feel powerful like he normally does, but they have to keep the curtains closed, and so he can't look out the window, and so he just goes and stands and looks at nothing for a minute. And it's just a great...
He opens the first blind, but not the second, and then quickly closes it when he realizes he can't.
Yeah.
He just stares at the blind. Yeah.
And it's such a great, subtle moment of powerlessness that I really appreciate it. And it's one of those things that's, it's completely nonverbal. It's just all in the filmmaking and the blocking, like you're talking about, Sean. And I just loved that character moment of him being used to feeling powerful and being used to look out over the city, and then realizing that his power is partly what is ruining his life.
The little geeky railroad nerd that was able to give his 2 cents on how like all the intricacies of railroad sounds.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That character was so eccentric.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the junkyard incinerator guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was really funny.
Yeah, well, look, with all of those
cool
characters.
60s, 50s Japan life as well. And getting like an inner eye look on that kind of stuff from the past.
Yeah.
That was Sean's pick of High and Low. And let's move on to our final film. This is a movie I chose for everybody to watch. It is a Turkish film that I believe came out in 2015 called Mustang. Mustang is a movie that has stuck with me since I saw it. It didn't actually make my top 10 of 2015, but as I went on, I think this movie, kept growing, and I have not forgotten it. So it was really cool to go back and watch this for my second time because it really hit me hard. I think this is like a beautiful film on a look on a different culture that you don't get to see. And this group of sisters growing up in this world. And I like that the film isn't always so hard and harsh on their circumstances, but you also get to see a good glimpse of like the joy and bond that they have growing up in this small village. And there's a lot of like really tender moments between them and them protecting each other and looking out for each other and enjoying being with each other as they grow up in this, I think it's like summer of their life. And when this movie hits its climax, it is so like thrilling and exciting, and you just want them to succeed so bad. Like I just got super hyped up during that final 20 minutes. And I'll never forget the like beautiful purple shots that this movie concludes with of, the beautiful city of Istanbul.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, it just really like brought tears to my eyes again, this time watching it, of her seeing that much hope in this massive city full of life and culture that she now gets to be a part of. It meant a lot to me back then. And yeah, it really hit me hard again this time. And I think it's a really, really incredible ending and an incredible film. So I'm excited you guys got to watch this finally. Had you guys ever heard of it, Sean?
I had heard about it, just around Oscar season. It was on my radar. It was actually on my list of movies that I wanted to see from 2015.
Yeah, was it nominated for foreign, I think?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, pretty sure.
I'm not sure what won against it, but I loved this movie for, all the same reasons you just talked about. I loved the bond between all the characters, to kind of emphasize what you were saying about how they would protect each other. Like even in the first scene, after the scene on the beach with the boys, like the grandma is is, trying to, punish them and hit, I assume bring them into a room and hit them. And they're all just like swarming her, like grabbing onto their sisters and trying to pull them away from her. And like, it was like, they just like are all so compelled to protect all of the other ones, all the other sisters. And then like another scene of bonding that just like I keep thinking about is when they're all, I think, just in one of their rooms, and it's like a dog pile of all the sisters as they're just sleeping and relaxing. And it's just like, there's such a warmth to their bond and
the lighting coming in. It's like this really pure daylight coming in while their feet are all over each other's faces.
Yeah. Definitely. And the way that they would play together, and hang out together, the way that they experienced joy together was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And how like there was kind of thematically, there was like thematically and literally there was a prison being built around their lives, as every time they got caught escaping the house, they the grandmother added a steel or like a lock on the door, and then like would put a steel cage over their window and slowly imprisoned them in this house. And then how that comes back in the end as the thing that ends up, I guess, kind of saving them and
Right, totally.
is the thing that allows them time to escape. I thought was
Make their plan.
a brilliant little piece of storytelling. And then, like the ending of this movie is so beautiful. Like that character, what is some delivery guy or the guy who drives the truck? I forget what exactly he was, but, like that character is like, I wanted so badly for him to be there for them. And I wanted so badly for him to just unquestioningly help them.
Yeah.
And, when he does, I just like, I broke down, and like his decision to just help these girls who needed his help just because he could give them the help that they needed was such a beautiful sentiment, and so touching. And
she says, if he heard me, he'll show up, like without question.
Yeah. It was such a beautiful moment when he shows up. And then like, I loved the fact that the youngest girl was really the one who was fighting the hardest, for her freedom and for her sister's freedom throughout the movie.
Yeah.
It was kind of told through her perspective.
Yeah, she was the main character. It was her that really saves her sister in the end. And I thought that was a really beautiful statement as well.
Yeah.
Mm. This is definitely the lightest of Brandon's heavy hitters that he always recommends us watch.
Yeah. What did you think, Derek?
It was great. I loved it. It was a relief to not be completely emotionally destroyed by the end of it. But,
Man, I have not seen some of the other movies that Brandon has recommended and or forced on you guys because of contests.
It's not,
and the fact that this is really not one of the heavy hitters is horrifying to me.
It's not like I don't think he's been ruthless in his picks. Brandon just has a different taste in movies that tends to be, these, it's not light movies usually.
Super heavy foreign dramas about the misery of life.
No, but this one was pretty happy. Like he said, a lot of it, there's a lot of beautiful moments just seeing their relationships and their, it's just like kids being kids, and they're like absolute determination to find fun moments throughout each day of their lives to make it not so bad. And yeah, that was just really beautiful. I kind of agree with pretty much everything you guys were kind of saying. It's weird. Like, I know nothing. Turkey is probably one of the places I know the least amount on this planet. And so it's just kind of interesting to see what a small village in this, Turkey, but really that's any foreign movie like this. It's always, I think, what like a lot of the artistic stuff that shines through is how real it feels and how they're able to capture like what they're trying to capture. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if all these women are big actresses in Turkey, but like they all like are solid, like really sell it. They feel like real people, in this real situation.
Right, all these child actors just pull it off perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it feels like a documentary almost. And so, but that's the heavy parts of it, is that you see all the rough parts of this very specific, part of a specific culture.
Yeah.
But that's also the benefit, that's what's great about film, is you're able to experience that. And luckily we don't have to go through it, but we're able to empathize with people that do now by people crafting film this good. Yeah. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
Shout out to one scene that cracked me up this time that I forgot about was the grandma seeing them at the soccer game on TV.
Oh yeah, she just goes
like,
around busting,
smashing things with rocks and like hammering out the like power in the house. Like it was really well paced.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't she shut down like the power?
Yeah, I think their auntie or somebody goes and throws rocks at the transformer.
Yeah,
that was great.
Yeah, I think.
What did you think, Cal?
I also like. It's a really powerful movie. I can't really say I enjoyed it. I had seen it before and I watched it again this week.
Oh right, okay.
And it's really good. One thing to kind of speak to what you guys were just talking about, I think that scene, and there's a handful of other moments in this movie that actually kind of lend it a realistic quality, because in general the movie's not narrated, but Lale like cuts in to narrate certain moments where she's saying like, oh, we found out about this later, or when the first sister gets married and she says like, this is the last time we would ever be together. It gives it this sort of journalistic feel where it feels like you're not watching a character, you're watching a real person who made this movie about themselves, which I don't think is the case. I don't think this is based on a specific real situation, but at the same time, it is in a certain way. There are, and that's, I think that's part of what makes the ending so brutal for me is, like not only within the characters of this movie, like 2 of the 5 sisters get out of town. One of them ends up with, someone she actually likes. But then like everybody else in that entire village is still trapped in this insane system of oppression.
Mm-hmm.
And
still trauma from that point in their life and their uncle.
And so like the ending
I don't
is,
think the youngest girl has that, but I think it's pretty clear the second youngest before they escape also gets raped.
yeah And so like the ending is beautiful because it's just this final moment of relief for them, and I think that's part of what makes the movie work so well. Is I think part of it is like Derek was talking about, like I'm just not familiar with this the kind of culture that exists in this village or in Turkey in general, and so to sort of acclimate to this, and you end up in sort of the position that they are in, is like you never know what is a punishable offense, basically. Like eventually you feel like any sort of expression of happiness or freedom from them is going to lead to a punishment or some sort of new layer of terror added to their lives. And so it is a weird movie. Like I agree that there are a lot of beautiful and even really funny moments, but eventually, like, I think those are almost not undercut, but there's this there's a tension there in any happy scene, because you are sort of programmed in the same way that they are, that them seeking out their own happiness just for the sake of being happy is not allowed. And so anytime they are happy, it's like, okay, well then what bad thing is going to happen next?
Every happy moment is fleeting.
Yeah, it starts trading one type of scene for the other, and definitely starts spiraling into darkness, as you said, Sean, as they're like actually building a cage around these sisters. And it gets harsher and harsher. So it's front loaded, and then until their lives start changing and things get worse.
Yeah.
I think.
But finish up. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, that was one moment specifically that I wanted to call out. Is I think it's the scene like immediately following when they have the bars put up, and the sisters they're like in their swimsuits and they're just relaxing in the yard, and one of them has like her feet up on the new bars, and which is like just a great image of like these women just like trying to relax and live their life, and like, you know, within this literal cage that's been put up around them. And then, but the fact that the thing that like got me about that scene is like I saw them in their swimsuits, and my first reaction is like, oh, you should go put on like your shapeless, horrible dress that they make you wear, because someone's going to get mad at you for being dressed like that. Which is like, that is like me participating in the patriarchy of that scene, which I think is kind of how the grandma comes off a little bit too. Like you realize eventually the grandma is kind of shielding them from the uncle, but she is shielding them by participating and just
trying to marry them away as quick as possible to get them out of the house.
Yeah, and
away
so
from what a worse would
so
be.
even the compassionate people who are trying to help are helping in a way that is permissible according to this abusive structure that they're trapped in. And so that scene of like my gut reaction being like, oh no, like they're relaxed and hanging out in their swimsuits, like they shouldn't do that. Like that was a powerful feeling to realize I was having, of like, oh no, like now I'm part of it. Like I'm agreeing with it. I'm complicit in them being trapped, because I'm agreeing like you'll get punished if you don't follow the rules. And
the doctor in the hospital, you know, there's that subtle shot of the dad showing the gun to the attendant. And then you just infer the rest of what's actually being scientifically stated about the girl. And them participating in that cover up as well. But
so were they in Istanbul in that hospital, or is that like a local hospital?
I assume that was a local.
Okay, but they understand. So there's clearly like different cultures. In that close area that disagreed with each other and how things are, and that doctor recognized what was happening.
That was my reading as well. That like, this village, or you know, this community is like, they're pretty strict and conservative about everything. But I thought that was the implication as well, that was the regular doctor, but that he is just not part of this same in-group.
Right. He went to university in Istanbul and just got this doctor job.
So I had a question
doesn't speak
for
up
everyone.
when he knows the situation. Because being threatened by a gun. Right. Or, go ahead, Sean.
So the movie is called Mustang, and it totally went over my head what that means. Did anyone catch that?
I was looking that up today. I couldn't find anything.
I think the implication is basically like that Lale, the youngest, is like I think she is the Mustang. Like she's just refusing to be.
You can't break her.
Yeah, she's just not being. She's not allowing herself
Wild,
to be.
Reading right now, a
to be
Mustang
ruled
is
by
a
this.
wild horse, free roaming horse of the Western United States.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
I
she
guess that
is.
makes sense.
So yeah, that was my reading. Is that
Thematically,
yeah,
the
like
Mustang.
everyone else like gets tamed to a certain extent. Like that's a horrible word
Yeah.
for it, but they're just like they by force are bridled and ridden, and she's the one that is just like, no, absolutely not. I'm never going to stand for this, even though I don't know how old she's supposed to be, like 10 or 12 or something maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
And so yeah, that was my reading of the title, at least, is that she's the Mustang that just is like, nope, let's leave, let's like kick down these doors and get out of here.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, guys. I'm glad you had the chance to all finally get to check that out. So, I guess to wrap this up, Derek, do we have anything we are looking forward to in quarantine as far as new film releases in the next month or this summer?
God, I could not. There's not a lot, guys. It's looking pretty dire out there. The one thing I'm looking forward to, and I can't find any official news about it, but I feel like I heard like Dan Murrell or something on someone talking about it, was The Green Knight, David Lowery's new movie.
Is that getting released?
I don't know. That's what I'm curious about. I've heard rumors that A24 is trying to get it on a streaming platform somewhere. So that's like that'd be really cool. But as of right now, it still has the May 29th release date, but theaters have already said they're not going to be open by then.
Yeah.
So it's kind of up in the air, but that's something to hopefully look forward to if they find a landing date. But other than that, we don't get another new movie until theaters open on July 17th. Tenet, Christopher Nolan's Tenet is the first
He's holding out
scheduled
hope
movie.
for that blockbuster.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're planning on. Sounds like they're kind of sticking to their guns to be open to release that movie. That'll be the first movie back.
Yeah.
And
We'll
then,
see.
So that's July 17th, and then we get Mulan later on in that same month. But other than that,
So
we
it'll be after.
everything has like release dates after that. But I kind of feel like there's going to be a lot more shuffling around, especially if that July 17th doesn't happen. So,
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if some things are still going to come out on home video.
yeah,
But and also, I mean, I know Netflix and Amazon Prime are still going to be putting out their own new movies, but yeah, it's not exactly the same as the big cornerstone stuff.
yeah.
Right.
So
But I guess
that's,
we'll have our next episode before any of that even comes close to coming out as well, since that's so far off.
Right.
But yeah, that David Lowery movie is exciting. To get prepared for the next episode, my pick is going to be Mirror, Tarkovsky's film. Derek, what are you picking?
I picked Fright Night.
And
2011
Cal / Nick
I was going with Return to Me.
and Sean.
After Hours, Martin Scorsese's After Hours.
Awesome. Can't wait, guys.
Yep.
Sweet.
All right. Thanks for hanging out and talking movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Cal.
Was
Yeah,
fun.
it was a
Thanks for
pleasure to be
hanging out.
here.
Thanks a lot,
I
thank
had a
you.
blast. Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Of course.
Bye, guys.
See you soon.
See ya.